Hello and welcome, everybody. This is our Dresden discussion for books 4, 5, and 6. We'll start with some introductions. We'll start with Sarah.
Hey everybody, my name's Sarah from the channel Sarah Reads. I am a recent Dresden fan, so I just finished the series for the first time this year, but I really, really love them and I'm now desperate for more, just like everybody who's loved them for a really long time.
And then we got Nathan up here in the corner.
Hey there. Yeah, same as before. I'm just, a Dresden geek that knows J.R. Carroll, and he invites me on here from time to time.
And we have Alex on here with us.
Hey everybody, I'm Alex Nieves, same name as my channel. I've actually read through all of Dresden at least once. I've reread a few books now, and then for this, I went back and reread books 4, 5, and 6 in a couple of days, and go figure, loved them all over again. And I actually enjoyed Summer Night more this time around, having the knowledge of what happens in the series, which was one of my least favorites to this point, and same with Blood Rites. And then I went back and reread it, and I'm like, no, they're all pretty good.
Yeah, I actually went back through and watched your review videos for him too, and I was like, yeah, he wasn't such a big fan of Summer Night.
I wasn't.
But I liked to ask everybody, and since you weren't with us last time, Alex, how did you get into Dresden? Like, what was your introduction? Who told you, or how'd you stumble upon it?
All of BookTube said that it was the best thing ever. So I ended up reading Stormfront and loved it, and everybody was kind of saying, well, it's the worst one except for Full Moon, and if you like it at all, it's going to get better and you're going to fall in love with it for the entire series. And I genuinely loved Stormfront. It was one of the most fun books that I had read in a long time, and so I just started getting the ball rolling on Dresden, and I was reading a couple a month, and they're so quick and fun and easy to read that it was just, history at that point. I was just flying through them.
Yeah, it is. I just find it, even rereading them, it's like you just want to just keep going. You just want to, and and for doing all these discussions myself, I found I was like, all right, well, okay, I've got to stagger these. I want to finish the last one right before the stream, and then it's like, I want to just keep going. I just want to keep going, and
that's what happened with me too. It's one of the series where, probably because they're so short, but it's so well paced that it's like almost an episode or a couple episodes of TV. It flows so well from page to page that there's no breaking point really. There's not a good stopping point. It's just constantly going, and I just end up flying through it. And the audios are so good too. If you're not an audiobook person, the audio is fantastic, and that gets a lot better too because Marcus kind of gets into his characters a little bit more as the series goes on, because I hadn't even heard these books on audio the first time through. I read them, so he was doing slightly different versions or voices for Toot Toot and some of the other characters that I know when you're on, he gets way more into it. So I was like, oh, he hadn't even really gotten to that point yet. Yeah, it happens.
But yeah, I think, and people had brought him up before with Marsters, they weren't as polished. Even the recordings weren't as polished in the first 3 books. You could hear the lip smacking a little bit.
Lip smacking, and people would complain about his. Yeah, they'd complain about his spit gurgling or something, or just. I never noticed it. I didn't care. I was just caring about what was being said.
Yeah, I actually didn't notice. I didn't notice the whole lip smacking and stuff until this time through. Hey, Chaz.
Hey there.
But yeah, I didn't notice it until I was doing this re-listen or whatever, and I was like, yeah, that yeah, I can hear it in the background. And then I think Summer Night really is when they start polishing everything, and they kind of knew that this was going to be, he was going to go through the whole book series. So they're like, okay, let's put some money into this and make sure it sounds proper. And I'll let Chaz kind of introduce himself. You only missed a couple minutes, so that's good.
Hey, cool. I did good. I almost missed more than that, but
running through the house trying to get the headset on. Oh my god!
right, exactly. Yeah, trying to put myself together here. Yeah. So
Hey,
yeah, I'm Bookish Chaz and huge Dresden fan. I just finished book 9, White Knight, just recently. So halfway
nice.
through.
Oh, yeah. Hold on one second, guys. I'll be right back.
Sure. Yeah.
And now the host has departed the building.
This is your first time through, right, Chaz?
Yeah, this is my first time through. Yeah, and I'm absolutely loving it. I've been doing one a month. In fact, depending on how things go next month, I might even do 2 next month. So we'll see. I'd love to finish it before the end of the year, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen.
Right.
It's the perfect series to read a couple at a time because they're so short and they fly. And then it's
they do progressively get bigger though.
Yeah, they are. They do get a little bit chunkier.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had to go get my Michael on, so
there we go. Do you have Amarachius with you?
Oh, gotta have it, right?
You can't,
right?
I didn't know you got into LARPing.
Not yet, but it was only appropriate. You know, I did my Marcone in the first one, so I had to go with Michael in the second one.
Yeah.
If you don't do Mab for the third one, I'm never talking to you again.
Yeah, we're expecting them to get more creative as time goes by.
Yeah, I'll get the frosted tips next. You know, something. You know, we'll Alex, we'll bring back the '90s. You know, we'll get those frosted tips going.
Yeah, I'll definitely be doing that with you. Totally. I'll be single that night too. My wife will leave.
So what did you guys think? Coming in out of Grave Peril. I mean, was Summer Night where you kind of expected it to go? And did you think it was? A lot of people think that like Summer Night is one of the best. I've heard even people like, oh, it's in my top 5, or it's really where Dresden becomes Dresden. And I kind of agree with that. Like, just this, like, it's the same feeling I get throughout all the Dresden books. Is like once you get to Summer Night.
So, just to clarify, we're not worrying about spoilers from books 1 through 3 now, right? Like it's foregone conclusion.
If you're here, I am assuming that you've read the first 3 books. So
that being said, Harry starts a war. He starts a war. He loses the love of his, well, not love of his life, but he loses his current love interest.
Mm-hmm.
He gets depressed, and then he mouths off to things that could squash him like a bug. This is the quintessential Dresden plot. This is his, this is the first time you really see him be like what you expect, what you see the rest of the series, I think.
You definitely start to see him in way over his head, not understanding that there's much more big and bad out there than the first couple ones. I mean, Stormfront, you had a warlock. Full Moon, you had some werewolves, and Marcone. Grave Peril, it was like the ghosts, right? Or whatever was ghosts and
the Red Court vampires.
Yeah,
aggravating the ghosts, and for the most part, that's really it. You had a really powerful ghost being kind of the arc villain of that one, of the big bad of that book.
But they were pretty simple up to that point, and then Summer Night starts to expand things. And it's like, no, now you have 2 warring fairy courts that are at each other's throats, and there's little stopping them from just destroying existence.
The things that they do affect the real world, and these things are basically physical gods.
Yep.
And it is the tipping point has happened. So in the first 3, you do get some continuity between 1, 2, and 3 in Harry's personal life. So you see like the events in Chicago and how they carry over from book to book. But after the war starts with the Red Court, there are events that impact the world that are carrying over from book to book. So it does broaden the scope a little bit post book 3.
And exactly, your experience, you're now for a fact that you have consequences that are going to, like you said, carry over from book to book and everything. So what he does has gravitas and matters.
Yeah, for sure. I was trying to kind of refresh my memory earlier for these books. Well, not so much for 5 and 6 because I'm pretty solid on those, but trying to rehash my memory on book 4 because I have a lot of the pieces from book 4, like a lot of the major hits, but I was trying to remember bits and pieces of it. The thing that the thing that really stuck out to me with book 4 was kind of like what some of you have already been saying is Harry. I don't know if gumption is the word I want, but he starts just not really caring who he offends necessarily, and he's taking a lot of personal risks as well as a lot of things that may end up risking other people. And impetuous, I guess, is the word I'd use. He becomes a lot more impetuous, and I kind of wonder if that doesn't kind of carry over from the pain that he suffered after what happened to the love of his life, basically at in book 3.
Yeah.
He's becoming a lot more risky, almost like he's wanting to punish himself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
Like feels like he failed her.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I feel like that becomes a big and bigger part of his character, where he gets very tunnel visiony and really only thinks about like his own kind of vengeance and success. And then it's like, oh yeah, I just started an actual war between the Red Court vampires and the White Council, or like, oh, now like I've been like in Summer Night, I've been being used by the Winter Court to get at the Summer Court, and like then he meets all the other like fairy mothers, and he's like, oh, there's actually more going on here that I had no idea even existed. And he doesn't really think about anything. He just kind of like does it. And there's always people like Dresden, like, think about other people. There's other stuff going on. He's like, no, I'm mad.
Yeah, that seems to be like that's why I kind of feel like Summer Night becomes like quintessential Dresden, because it's like he just gets in over his head, and he's like, oh, I can just smash this down, okay? And they're playing, you don't, and everyone's telling him, you don't understand what's going on here. The world is so much bigger, and that's what I liked about Summer Night. Is like I feel like we just opened a huge, cavern of like, okay, now we get to see a lot more of the Dresden verse, through the fairies.
Another nice thing about this one and everything is later in this book, this is one of the very first times, not the only times, but one of the very first times that Harry is put in a situation where he can't magic himself out of it. So, like, I like to hearken it to Harry. He's got a big freaking hammer, and when you got a big hammer, everything looks like a nail. And like what Joe was saying, people are in the background going, hey, not everything's a nail. Do not hammer these things. Don't hit this. Don't hit that. And whatnot there. But yeah, he goes up against something that is completely, grounds out his magic. So what's he going to do? Run from it.
Well, and it's, especially like at the beginning, I felt a lot like Bob, in the fact that where he's already tired of, like, from the very beginning, like, Harry's down on himself, and he's like unshaven, and he's just out there just picking up frogs and stuff, and he's just like not wanting anyone to talk to him. And when he goes down to talk to Bob, Bob's like, this is getting kind of annoying already. I was like, and I felt the same way. I'm like, come on, Harry, like let's push this forward a little bit. And but I guess we got to see a little bit more of Bob being like trying to be the helpful person, but he's also kind of an a-hole, so it kind of doesn't work out so well as a motivator.
Yeah, his bedside manner isn't great.
No, he's more like one of the personal trainers. He's just
right.
Come on, you idiot. That's kind of how he goes. Did you Now I know, Alex, in your original review, you were like, I'm not into the fairy court stuff and everything. Did that change? Has your mind changed now, or at least rereading this? And how did everybody else feel about like the fairies becoming a main thing?
I mean, initially for me, I was more of like, all right, I'm cool with werewolves and vampires and, you know, warlocks and stuff like that. As soon as it got to the Fae, I felt like it was a little bit over the top of just like how hypersexualized they were, and I didn't really care about them or like the little like pixies with like Toot and all of them. I was just kind of like, this is okay. I didn't really care that much for it. And the big bad of like the showdown, I just didn't really care for too much, like fighting the chlorofiend or whatever it's called. Like a lot of that stuff I wasn't like over the top about on my first read. Obviously, having read the entire series now and just like knowing more about the Fae and like where some of these things go, it's much more impactful, and I enjoyed it a heck of a lot more this time around. I wouldn't put it like top 5 or anything, but it went from like a lower tier book for me to like a high mid tier where I was like, yeah, no, this is actually a lot better than I realized or thought initially. And then obviously the following book still stomps on it in every sense of the way, but it was good this time around, and I actually genuinely loved it.
What did you think, Sarah?
I was surprised. I liked Summer Night when I read it the first time, and usually I don't like Fae, so in other fantasy they are not my favorite magical creature, but Dresden has changed my mind, and definitely that happens more as the series goes on, but I still enjoyed Summer Night. It was not my favorite. I probably preferred book 3 and 5 and probably even 6 when I read them the first time. But I imagine, like Alex, if I go back and reread it, knowing what I do at the, the point where we are right now, I would probably like it a lot more. But there's some good moments. There's some cool action sequences in Summer Night. The mystery is interesting. And so it wasn't bad. I didn't dislike it when I went through, but it wasn't one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, it looks like Colton says that it was one of the strongest openings where you got to meet the council.
I totally agreed with that.
He tries to be Aladdin. Good.
And it's nice to see the intersection, right? Up until now, everything seems like its own individual entity. Like you have the wizards and the Fae, and they don't have any overlap. But in Summer Night is when we start to see everything kind of blend together.
Definitely.
Which is important.
Yeah, like I definitely feel like, Summer Night was when everything starts opening and starts crossing paths. And then, you have the council being like, well, we need to, and I do love that scene where Harry has already, I guess we should talk about the first meeting with Mab. Like how awesome was that? Like, Harry had like this inkling that something was going wrong, and it's like, this is something not right about her. And then like when he finds out who it is, Jim does a great job of like conveying like, yeah, you should be afraid. You should be afraid. Right. Like this is nothing. She's no one to play with immediately.
He just he throws nuclear waste at a god, and really, really, really ticks her off. So yeah, it's not a good place to be. And then, she tells him, she makes the bad situation worse by going, oh, by the way, that like mystical debt that your godmother owes?
I purchased it.
I own that now.
Surprise.
It's mine now. You owe me.
Yeah. Even worse than that, I own you. So, I mean, she demonstrated that she had like complete control over him by making him do crap to himself that he would not have done otherwise.
Yeah, and that was another thing we got to see, because through the first 3 books, you got a lot of you need to keep your word or things happen, but we never really saw too much of it. We saw a little bit of it with Leah, but in here it's like Jim's like, I'm going to show you what happens when someone has your debt or your word or whatever, and how Mab just shut him down.
They will collect. There's no way around it. Yeah. But he also on the other side of that too, he proves that as crazy and dangerous and terrifying as the Fae are, they are also true to their word. And he repeats that several times about Mab. Like, she gave her word. Like, she's going to show up and do this thing that she said she's going to do. It's, I mean, it might not be pretty, but they're not necessarily liars. Obviously, Maeve's a little bit different. She's kind of crazy, but.
Yeah. So I also think that, this is pure speculation on my part. So, like, take that, everybody, as you will. But I also think that Jim dropped a little Easter egg in there when they were talking about those words and things like that. Like, he says something about, he kind of calls Map a liar or something, or implies that she's full of crap, and she just gets insanely pissed because I mean, her word is bound to her and everything. So she says, and I'm going to paraphrase it or whatnot. I might not be exactly perfect on the quote, but she says something along the lines of, the stars will go out before Mab keeps not her word.
Yeah.
I think that might go into Empty Night.
Good.
Yeah. Well,
but that's something we'll, much further down the way. So we won't talk about that.
But I loved, from that meeting that he had with her to having to go to the council, and we got to see the council for the first time, and those correspondence courses are terrible.
The terrible Latin.
But I just loved him sitting back there listening to all of them about, we need to make sure we got the Mab on our side and have the Winter Court will let us pass, and Harry's just sitting back there like, oh God,
I know some of them words.
I already know what's happening. I know what I'm gonna have to do. And again, Jim is such a great writer, because in me, I'm sitting back here like, yep, I feel you.
I mean, and this right here is a perfect example of the world feeling like it's expanding and becoming fleshed out. Now the word politics is kind of a dirty word when it comes to entertainment, because you want to escape, but timeless politics, as Joe has said before, or politics, like fantastical politics. Those are just fun. They're just fun.
It's not 2022 American politics.
Yes, exactly. This is fantastical politics inside of Dresden, and this is the stuff that this is meat and potatoes of intrigue. You're seeing the politics of the White Council trying to establish a safe trade or a safe route through Winter Court to go to war with another fantastical court or nation and stuff like that. And so it kind of gives you the sort of ancient Tudor England, alliances and agreements type feel to it, but with fantasy nations. So that's just pure awesome, I think.
Absolutely. And in the midst of all the politics, Harry is the point man, and he totally doesn't want to be.
He's the powder keg.
The powder keg. That's a better way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And he knows it too.
He does. Yeah.
And he gets treated as a cat's paw from other people in the senior council. This is the first book. Yeah. This is the absolute first book you actually see the actual council, the White Council, and the senior council and stuff. Yep. So exactly. You also see their politics, like the crap that these conniving old farts are doing. Where the Merlin's I don't like this Dresden guy. He's too much. He's too loud. And he does too much stuff.
I mean, the whole White Council wants him dead.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And this is the book where McCoy was he's going to try to do three things. Yeah. I will squash the first. I'll help you with the second. The third one's you're on your own. And that was just, I love that stuff. That was quintessential Dresden.
And just how
gambits.
Was that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're all playing their gambits. And even just down to the most nitpicky stuff, like the fact that he can't talk to them in Latin. It's like, come on, guys. But they just don't want to give him any kind of edge.
It's like a stuffy fraternity. They're like, these are the rules. We don't care. I don't care that everybody here speaks English and like 6 other languages. We talk in Latin.
Yep.
If you can't do that, you are invalid.
That is the moment that I knew I wanted Alan to read these books so that I could hear what he said.
Oh yeah, totally.
I was like, oh my God, I need him to read this part and react to it.
Oh my God. I could just see Alan going on about this. Inomine Dei. Oh my God. But like, I liked how in this, like, Dresden kind of continues his like building his kind of alliances, even though he's also building up a bunch of enemies. He's building up alliances on the other side with, the alphas and Toot Toot,
Oh, that one pays off in dividends.
And this is where he, I think this is where when he first like kind of traps Toot Toot again, like this is where you get to first see the Zaw Lord's army, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, to me that's just like one of the best things, like where he just has these little minions that he can call up whenever he needs to go run errands for him.
I was one of the things that the first time around I was just like, this is dumb. It's like, I don't think this is funny. These things are just silly. And then after reading the rest of the series, like I love Toot and his little army. It's just like, so now rereading it, I'm like, yeah, no, I was wrong. They're cool.
It's funny how certain you can be about things at the beginning of Dresden, and everybody will tell you that you'll change your mind. You're like, not everyone's going to change their mind, and everyone changes their mind. It's true.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, like, I'm also like waiting for Philip to kind of catch up, because he's like, well, I can see it. It's on his last one. He's like, I think it's almost there. I'm like, I'm telling you, when you get to it's over after this next one.
Happened.
But because I know, Sarah, you said, what was it, after 8 is when you just started taking off, like, and you were just doing, like, I don't know how you did so many of the Dresden books. What, like, was it 8, like, where you just that was where it got you?
Yeah, the main takeout. I really like 7. So 7 for me was a big jump over the first 6. But then once I finished 7 and then read 8, I was like, oh, so this wasn't a one-off thing. They're just all this good now. And then I just didn't stop after that.
That's proven, right? Proven guilty.
Yeah, but Deadbeat is 7, and that's the one that everybody kind of touts as like, it's all uphill. Like, you're not going to stop at that point. Like, everything is just better and better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I'd hit my stride by book 6 even.
Yeah.
And even book 5, I mean,
5 was 5.
Yeah, 5 was really good, but then once I hit 6, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely hit my stride here, and I'm gonna finish this sucker.
So I'm not the only one who just completely, but at this point in like book 4, just hates Morgan with the passion of 1,000 suns.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
he's
no,
he's
absolutely
person in the entire thing. Well, him and Rudolph are just like dueling for the worst person ever.
Yeah, at this point, he has absolutely no redeeming qualities, and even later, they're pretty few and far between.
But at this point in time, it's like, no, this guy is meant to be a thorn in his side. He just is itching for a reason to kill Harry. And like when he shows up at the apartment, and first of all, you get Elaine back, and Harry's all confused about that, and he's like, "Wait, I can't have you here. Like, they're literally going to kill me." And then Morgan shows up. He's like, "All right, this is not good."
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, when I was rewatching your thing, your review on Summer Night, where you were talking about when he shows up at the house and he's like, "Are you alone?" I was rolling when you went through that. He's like, "Well, I was just gonna hang out, with a bottle of lotion." I'm just like, "Oh my god!"
He's like, I don't know if I have enough for 2, but I'll sit here and watch whatever he says. Okay.
So, I mean, I honestly think that like Morgan is personified by the concept of lawful stupid.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's doing what he thinks is the right thing. Like in his mind, he's righteously indignant. He's got the righteousness. He's got that righteous path and everything. But like when you look at the bigger picture, he's just dumb. He's an
He
idiot.
has blinders on.
Yeah.
He's unwilling to accept any kind of like facts or reality around him other than how he perceives it.
And that's that
So
wizard
he's-
arrogance right there. But it's just taken up to 11 on this one.
Yeah, he has a preconceived notion of who Harry is, and he's not going to change it. He's like, no, he goes, I don't care. I know who you are. This is what you are. And I'm just sitting there through all the books. I'm like, dude, how stupid are you, man? Like, look around, But I guess it kind of goes with that noir. Like, there's always that thorn in the side of the detective, and
I mean, you have in Rudolph, who's just a dumb cop.
Oh my god!
Even with all the evidence in front of him that like fantastical things exist, he's like, nope, this isn't real. Like,
he's like, it's kind of like Sonia, where he's just like, it could be hallucinating.
He's like, you literally fight for the Knights of the Cross against demons. He's like, yeah, but who knows?
Could be hallucinating,
He's laissez-faire about it, though. He's just like, I'm not going to say no. But at the very least, he's like, this could be a hallucination, could be aliens, could be demons, but they need to kill it.
Yeah,
it needs to die. Whereas, Rudolph is like, this is not happening. It's literally right in front of him. He could smell, taste, and touch this thing if he wanted to, and he's like, no, this is not. No, this isn't being. This is all made up, and that I can only take so much of that. Like I honestly think I hate Rudolph more than any other character in the series. And that's like not even counting later books and later depictions. Like even early in the series, I hate him.
He's the worst.
I'm with you. He's not a very likable character at all. Or one of the characters that you very much love to hate on. He's just
I don't even love to hate him. Like I love to hate Morgan. He's fun to hate and everything because you're stupid, Morgan. But like whatever. At least I know your heart's in the right place in some twisted way. You think you're doing the greater good. Rudolph is just out for himself, and
selfish.
He wants to ignore all of objective reality, and I just can't abide that. I'm just like, no, man. You need to. Someone needs to stick his ass in the never never is what they need to do. Leave him there.
Did anybody here have trouble keeping the fairy courts like straight?
I mean, during the scene when Harry's literally learning about how many of them there are, and he's like, wait, so there's a mother, there's a queen, there's a lady,
and there's another set of these? There's 2 sets of these?
Yeah.
I'll definitely admit to some mental overload on that. Trying to keep it all straight.
Names are very different. You can keep them like when I first started reading, I was like, why are their names Mab and Maeve? Like, why can't they have different letters?
Yeah, why were they so close?
Right.
I mean, the mothers at least, you got mother, insert the season. It's pretty straightforward, but then you got Mab and Maeve and Aurora and Titania. Those 2 aren't too bad. Honestly, when I was first reading this, I didn't really lose track of that because I was like full blown hyper focusing into this, and like every single bit of detail was being absorbed in my brain, and so like I was categorizing and was like, okay, this one goes in. This is the Winter Lady, okay, and then I already knew the Winter Queen, and then didn't meet the Winter Mother, so forth and so on. And like you could kind of categorize them of the 2 young ones they're the new hotness, and you got standard model, and then you got old and busted. So it wasn't too bad.
But one thing, I don't know why. I think it's because I've been like seeing these like tag videos and stuff, and they're talking about animal companions, but like Grimalkin taking them down to the Undertown was hilarious. Where it's just like, oh yeah, will that please you? It would please me. It would please me to end you. He's like, oops.
Yeah.
Let's not talk to the bad kitty.
Right.
The giant fairy murder cat.
Oh my gosh. But like that scene where he goes down and he meets Maeve for the first time, it's just like Jim painted that picture so well. Like you've seen them all like dancing and like how like humans can never dance something so beautiful, and then the trumpeter ends up like dying because he wanted to he wanted to be the best trumpet player in the world, and it's like, yeah, we grant wishes, and then like they all go bad.
Can't trust the Fae.
Everything about that scene though was a concentrated success and concentrated awesome to me. Like I loved how it depicted. Well, first, one thing I loved about the fairies, by the way, is Jim's really harkening back to like grim fairy tales, the grim tales of the Fae. The reason that they're called the fair folk is if you say that they are how they are, they'll just straight murder you. So you gotta always be nice to them and such. I really liked that, and I think that this scene really conveys that, like how they're just the Winter Court straight up predators. They're these dang like big cats running around in the Serengeti or whatever, and like if you treat them without respect, if you're cavalier around them, they're going to eat you alive.
Well, it was like when we go up and we meet the Summer Court. Even from there, like something didn't sit right with me. It's just the way she was acting, way like too nice. She's just like, let me take your pain from you. It'll and I'm like, don't do it, Harry.
Right.
What's your angle, lady?
Trusty bucket of ice water.
Yeah, hitting them with the glamour. I mean, again, that was another thing. It shows how like deceptive and sneaky they can be, because they're not saying anything. They're just hitting him with mental whammies with sexy glamour. And then but on the flip side, another reason I love this whole scene is it shows Harry and his the way his mind works and everything. Like he may just look so stupid, but he's not. He's got a lot going on behind those eyes, and he immediately knew what was going on. He dealt with it in an absolutely hilarious way, and then he ripped into her about everything that she did wrong during the entire exchange, and he like completely wrote her off as a possible culprit for the Summer Knight's death in that moment, and he was 100% certain about it, and he was right.
Well, and I know a lot of people were kind of like the whole Elaine thing, where he actually did bring her up in the earlier books, but then like as soon as he said something about her in this book, then she popped up. Like it was super close, and some people were like, "Well, how obvious was that?" And then just the way she's kind of plays him, doesn't play him, and where she leaves him in that spell. Like I knew some people like didn't like that, she left him with that spell, and of course he was gonna find it had something to do with their past. How did you all feel about that? Like,
I thought it was fine. I mean, maybe yes, a little bit too convenient. Being that close that he's talking about her, and then she shows up. But like, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was an interesting little tidbit to the story.
I mean, stuff like that doesn't bother me, and I feel like it's almost intentional how formulaic some of the beginning books are. Like it's by design to be kind of obvious and on the nose at times, and it's not really until you get a little bit deeper into the series where he starts to actually like open things up. Still to this point, Summer Night starts to open up the world in the series, but it's very much like beat by beat. If you have any familiarity with like noir novels or like investigator kind of like stories, like you can kind of expect things to happen at certain points, and like he's still kind of following that. But I thought it was cool bringing her back in, and then seeing that she was actually like a thrall to the Fae, and just how she was playing him because she had to, and like he had this belief about her and Demorne that was wrong because she was like, I was literally a thrall. Like he made me do it. Like he wanted to do it to you too. So there's a lot more to her. So I had no issues with the timing of it or anything.
Yeah.
Well, and I just loved how, like, that's one thing, like, where, I mean, I love Stephen King, you know, but a lot of people will say he's hit or miss with his endings. Like, Jim kills the endings on almost all his books. Like, that's like, you know, I feel like that's one thing because like when I write, like, I see what kind of character and then I see the ending. Like, and I feel like Jim's kind of that same way too. He's like, I have this ending and then I'm going to build around it, because the end of this book was crazy. And, you know, it's going through the battle. I know, Alex, you didn't really like the battle.
I thought it was super corny the first time, because I was like, all right, we have a bunch of like pixies fighting fairies and like dryads and trees, and I was just like, this is just corny. It felt like the movie version of Ready Player One, where it's just like a bunch of CGI like characters just like smacking into each other. I was like, this just feels so silly, even for Dresden. So I wasn't a huge fan, but this time around, I was like, I'm into it. It's fine. It's cool.
But he didn't believe in fairies.
Yeah.
That part by itself is absolutely hilarious, especially when, you know, anyone that takes the time to look it up, and like apparently in folklore, when you say that and everything, a fairy drops dead. So he's just like, all right, I'm gonna take one out in the back.
Right.
Yeah, and I loved how, you know, he used Toot Toot and all of them, just like, she's like, oh, you're not going to be able to do anything, and he just unleashes them, and as
with their armor and weapons and everything.
Death of 1,000 cuts. What they all had? What, box cutters? Is that what they had?
Yeah, box cutters and you know, things like that, wrapped with duct tape and everything, so they don't hurt themselves. And oh man, like it's an awesome moment, but there's a lot of horror when you think about it. Like when it comes to like that is the worst kind of death you can give one of those types, you know, one of those people. Like they call it the Bane. It's considered like nuclear waste. And so like basically they're just hitting them over and over and over with 1,000 cuts of radiation and, you know, slow, painful death.
Yeah, and it's so like, it's so dark but funny at the same time, because you're like, you're imagining what, like a couple dozen like little fairies holding these box cutters, and you're like, that is so stupid. But then you're like, what they're doing to her, you're like, damn, that's kind of dark. You're like,
actually, it's terrifying. But it also sets up something important for Harry's character, because we see him call upon these people for help that everybody else overlooks, and that is something that will continue to happen as the series goes on. The important thing about Harry is that he can recognize the value in people who are overlooked by others.
Yeah. Yeah, he recognizes he's not all powerful, and he can't go solo in every situation.
One of his flaws to that point too, though, is even though he's not all powerful, like he still feels that deep need to protect everybody. So he still doesn't want to give everyone all the details. He doesn't want Murphy there. He doesn't want the alphas there. Like he wants their help, but he's also like, no, I have to protect you, because if you die like on my watch, then I'll never, you know, live with myself.
I actually really liked. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
I actually really liked what, you know, exactly your point there. I think this is the book where they show the flip side of that. Like I think this is the first book of his growth on that flaw. You know, he finally gives in, and he finally you know, fully discloses with Murph in the Walmart. And, you know, he tells the alphas. I don't know if he tells them everything yet. I think he might tell them everything later on.
I think it's a couple books from now where he's finally just like, all right.
But it's such an awesome contrast compared to what was her name? His little apprentice in Full Moon that he wouldn't tell anything to, and she went off and did her own thing and died.
Oh,
I don't remember.
God, yeah, I forget her name.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a great contrast to that, because that, like, you know, he held himself fully responsible for that. Like, and so, you know, him actually going out on a limb and actually dropping the masquerade with Murphy, for instance, you know, that's to me a lot of character growth. It took a lot, from my understanding of Dresden, it took a lot out of him to do that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And this kind of runs us into Death Masks, where so much was introduced, in Death Mask, and so many things come back. Like, we were all kind of waiting for, the things that happened in Grave Peril to start, because I always tell people, I'm like, there's so many balls that were thrown in the air, during Grave Peril, and then a few of them, dropped here in Death Masks, and I love that, we get that, scene where, Harry's, running from, I'm trying to remember his quote. It was something like, he's like, when a wizard sees, a giant bear with 8 arms or whatever, he's like, what we do? We run. That's what we do. We run.
Yeah.
It was one of the better openings, I thought, because it was one of the few where it wasn't just like he wasn't using like a damsel in distress, like, I need your help, Harry, right away. It was like he's wandering the streets and like a giant freaking bear attacks him, and then you have like the introduction of the rest of the Knights of the Cross.
Yeah, that was really cool.
It just immediately is just like, oh, now we have literal like fallen angels and demons enter the battle. So
and it's a perfect showcase of what you get when you pick one of the coins up.
Yeah, it really is.
Showed that. Oh gosh, what was that guy's name? I don't remember the guy that was the host for. It was Uracil, wasn't it? He's usually the bell or the bear.
Yeah.
Either way.
Oh, Ursa. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, like Uracil.
Uracil.
Something like that. Yeah, Uracil. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Like it shows his host, basically his soul, in that soul gaze, all wrapped up and, crucified and in absolute agony and, just wishing for death and everything. And you're like, yeah, I don't ever want to touch one of those coins. No, thank you. And then Urciel.
Yeah, I point a lot of people to this book, and and Chaz will probably understand this. Like, I like Malazan, but through each, like, the first 3 Malazan books are like 1,000 pages apiece, and inside of those 3,000 pages, not one character did I feel as much for as I did for Shiro in this one book. I
totally relate to that.
Like, Jim is a master of making you feel like for characters, like, and making you, be attached to them really quickly.
I personally like Shiro better than Michael. You're gonna kill me, JR, but
I can understand. I can, like I said, like I mean, Shiro just hits you right in the heart.
Yeah, totally.
So
that might be the truest unpopular opinion that I've ever heard. Everyone says they have unpopular opinions, then you drop that in a chat.
And I like Michael, but I don't know. Shiro just really resonated with me, and I'm like, okay, yeah. If I were to want protection from one of the Knights of the Cross, I'd be going after Shiro.
Well, not anymore, but
because so for instance, and this comes later in the book, obviously, but and
dare you, Isaiah?
Burn the witch.
Maybe Michael would have, but Michael's got a family and everything like that. Not that Shiro doesn't have people that wouldn't care if something happened to him, but like he just, in that warehouse where Dresden was chained up and everything, he's just like, here I am, Nicodemus, and he just stands in. That killed me. That and then when they found him on the altar later at the end of the book, I'm like, oh
man,
yeah,
giving me goosebumps right now. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he's still not as good as the Carpenters, but with what limited page count you get of him, he is incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
And this, the self-sacrifice that he lays down for Harry doesn't even impact you right away until you learn more about him, and you're like, the impact gets like tenfold when he actually learned like why it was even more important that he gave himself up to Nicodemus specifically, because he was the only one that ever fought him and survived. And like, there's so much more backstory to it. And then when they finally find him, you get the one little like fake out joke of like he's actually alive, but it was just brutal what he did to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you, Sarah? What did you think about like the dual stories here? With you had the Nenarians, and then you had the Red Court and the Duel and Ivy and all that.
I love Ivy, so she was a good character
Yeah,
addition.
Ivy's a great
So
character.
I really enjoyed her character, and I liked Nicodemus as a villain in book 5. But for me, this is where I thought the plotting got more intricate. Like the actual cases started to get more interesting, because I didn't really care that much about the plot in books 1 to 4. Like, it was just fun, and I like seeing what the characters were going to do and how it was all going to work out. But I didn't get super invested in each individual mystery. But as everything was happening with the Shroud, and like you said, those two kind of dual perspectives converging, it was the first time that I felt more invested in the actual plot of the book as opposed to the idea of the book.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, like he starts to weave things together, really well. And of course, like, this is the book where I really started liking Thomas. I'm just like, when he shows up and he's like drunk in his car, like the weed smoke comes out of the car, and he's like, "What's up, Ortega?" He's like, "This is gonna be fun."
That was great. Yeah.
I'm just like, this is gonna be a good character. Like, I was all in on Thomas after this book.
Yeah. Thomas is great. Yeah,
and book 2, right?
What's that?
Book 3. I think he came in. Did he?
He came in book
3.
Thomas was introduced at the party.
Yeah. No, not Thomas. I said Kincaid.
Oh, Kincaid. This is his introduction.
Yeah, this is his first book.
As well, right? Because he shows up with Ivy.
Both of those characters are absolutely perfect with each other, by the way. I love everything about both of them. And like, when they first meet, Harry's like talking to the archive, he didn't name her Ivy yet. And he's just like, who's this guy? And she's like, this is Kincaid. And he's like, well, can he be trusted? And she goes, Kincaid, can you be trusted? And Kincaid says, you're paid up till Tuesday. And she's like, see, Kincaid can be trusted until Tuesday. I love that exchange.
Yeah,
it's great. She's she is, this giant wealth of knowledge and information, but she's also literally a child. So he's like, I gotta get her to bed.
And you see that flip flop constantly, like moments where the inner child in her will come up when she sees, Mister. She's like, Kitty. And, then like at the drop of a dime, she's talking about, like the rules and the setup for this duel to the death between two people. It's just, it can be very jarring.
Yeah, that's true. It can be, because it's so weird, like seeing this young girl who's also like very adult and has all this knowledge, who at the end, doesn't she say she wants to go get an ice cream cone at the end? I think
so.
Something like that. Yeah. I'm like, wait, what?
I love how she's like, oh, Kincaid, it's my bedtime.
Right. She's telling him. Yeah, exactly. It's
like when she first meets Harry and she's like, I'm the archive. He's like, what does that mean? She's like, I'm the archive.
I'm the archive.
I am the suppository of all human knowledge.
But she's like, in a way, she's almost like the opposite of Nicodemus, where Nicodemus uses his shadow to gather intelligence and stuff. So he kind of lurks in the shadows. She is the knowledge of everything that's written down. So you have to be able to see it in the light, kind of like, so she's kind of like the opposite of him.
Yeah, there's some contrast there. Absolutely. Another thing is he covets power. He's always looking for more, whereas she absolutely wants nothing to do with any of it. You know, if she had her way, she wouldn't be the archive.
Right.
Oh, and when you find out why she's the archive, it just really rips your heart out.
Oh man, I know.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that reminded me. I mean, it's a very loose illusion, but it reminds me a lot of Aaliyah in Dune.
That's a good point.
If you haven't read Dune, I'm not sure, but like, you know, she ends up coming with all the knowledge of the Reverend Mothers, like at birth, and it's just like, you know, all that knowledge thrust into such a young mind. It's just so disheartening.
I mean,
yeah, just to know what happened with her mother and everything, it's just like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved when they when they actually got the duels set up and everything, and it's just like she pulls out the Mordite, and he's like she's handling Mordite by he's like, what are you doing?
The concentrated unlife.
Mm-hmm. And she's nonchalant, like, you have to push this at each other, and if it gets too close to one of you, you will be consumed entirely. Like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I love that Thomas knows nothing about it, and he's like, what is this stuff? He's like, don't touch that, you idiot. He's like, that's why, like, it again in Malazan, my favorite character is Krumpa, and he's very similar to like the way that Thomas is acting right now, where he's just like, I'm bumbling idiot through things, but I'm not really.
Crouching moron, hidden badass.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and when it comes to Ivy too, one of the things about her is, like, she wants nothing to do with it and everything, but her sense of duty to the job, she won't do what her mother did. She's, you know, she's gonna stick to it through and through, but you know, like she has kind of this, you know, devil may care attitude about her own safety. Like you said, she's handling Mordite like it's nothing. And do you guys remember the line that I think was the first interaction that she has with Harry, where, you know, he says something to her like as he's treating her like a little child, and when she says something back, and he says, "Cross my heart and hope to die," and she says, "You don't know how much." Like that is dark, man.
Well, I loved where she was like, he goes, well, she's like, well, if you don't have a second, you forfeit. And he's like, well, what's that mean? He's like, well, then your life will be collected. And he's like, well, who's going to do that? She goes, I will. And he's like, I believe she could, and she would.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like, she is one. Like, I mean, what was it? This might be a little bit later in the series. I don't remember if it was in this one or not when they were talking about her, but she gets compared to the Fae Queens, like at least the ladies. You know, like I think she gets compared to a peer of the fairy ladies.
Levels.
Yeah, power level wise, and this is literally just you know, an 8-year-old girl with, you know, the repository of all. I mean, keep in mind, all rituals, all spells, everything ever written down, all in her head. Perfect recall.
That really bad scene in the Matrix sequel where he's like, "I'm the architect. I know everything." I know, and it's cool.
Well, I mean, you got to throw some ergos and some vis-a-vis
Yeah,
in there.
exactly.
Yeah, you gotta bust out your pen.
Yeah. Even the beginning of this, though, when Harry's on Larry Fowler, and it's just like this goofy TV, you know, talk show, and you have Mort there, who's, you know, an ectomancer or whatever he is, and he's just like talking to the dead, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah," he's like playing the crowd, and Harry's just sitting there like, "Dude, I'm actually a wizard." Garbage.
Right.
What was it? He had like layers upon layers of like sigils and stuff and runes that like hold his power in, and it was still short circuiting everything around him. And everything. And he's like, I don't know. I just get this mental image of this hyper introverted, just socially awkward, tall dude just sitting in this chair, you know, fidgeting around and everything. Thinking, like, I don't want to be here. I need to leave.
Yeah, just sitting there like, oh my God, I'm gonna blow everything in the studio if you say one more word.
Yeah, right.
But I do like, I did like that he's starting to reincorporate, like you said, he sees people who most people would just overlook, and they would just be like, they're nothing.
Yeah.
But Harry sees the possibilities and the potential in everybody, like he did with Morty.
Mhm.
You know, and he's like, Morty, you can do it. Like you can get your power back, man. And he's like, just put forth some effort.
Yeah.
You know.
That's later.
But like, I mean, I don't know if Sarah or Chess, I don't know if you're sports fans. I know Alex is, but like when him and Ortega are dueling, like I'm sitting there like getting pumped about it. I'm just like, come on, get him. You know, you almost feel like you're at a sporting event and you're just like, take him out already.
Oh yeah, I totally got that vibe from it.
They were
Like,
insane.
I'm not big into sports, but yeah, you can totally see that vibe there. Yeah.
Supernatural gladiators.
Mhm.
Is what it was.
And then Ortega has to go and start opening his mouth. I mean, he had him dead to rights. And then he opens his mouth and starts talking crap about his friends and family.
You can't
And I mean-
monologue. You can't monologue.
Nah, you cannot fall into the classic villain pitfall of monologuing, and he did.
Yep.
And it pissed Harry off. That's the quickest way to set his fire back up.
Yeah, I mean, he even did it at the studio, like on the set of the show, when he was, threatening to kill him, and he starts talking too much, and Harry just like starts sparking cameras out, and lights are going out, and he can't control it anymore.
I love that he gets sued by Larry Fowler. That's the best.
Yeah, I like that too.
He's like, how can you prove I did anything? He's like,
Well, I mean, to properly for this lawsuit to have any weight, you'd have to acknowledge that my magic did stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, am I magical, or I broke your crap, or you're not going to sue me? You got no case.
World, though, you're a hack until I need you to pay me, and then
Right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Schrodinger's hack.
Sarah, how did you feel about Susan coming back in and like their little, the little sect that she's joined and everything?
I really liked Susan, so I was sad when she left the story in book 3.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that I'm really paranoid about giving any spoilers because
Right.
I
I
find
know.
it so much harder to remember like the exact details of what people do in each book. So I will just say that I was happy that she showed up because I really like Susan. So
this is when she came back, and they're having conversations about like whether or not she's actually a full vampire, and that she has to kind of control her hunger and her powers. And she's got like the seals showing up on her
Yeah,
skin,
the
like,
tattoos.
Yeah, the tattoos. Which like Harry realizes later in the book that when she showed up to the house, she had like just fought somebody because she was like in the shadow, so he couldn't see it, but like she had seals all over her.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to learn about that, like her boring, bland Martin partner that Harry thought she was dating, and
The most bland man who's ever man.
exactly.
so they show up together in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember thinking that it was leading into something. So I, remember thinking like, okay, well, we're being given information right now that's clearly going to become important later in the series. And I wanted to know more.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
She fights a couple times in this, which is what I was excited about, because when she left the series and then came back here, I was like, oh, can we see her? I was begging for her to come back as a full-on vampire and just wreck people.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a little bit of that.
That
She
would have
did
been.
fight.
I mean, she's still pretty badass with like
Mhm.
her half vamp powers and stuff. But yeah, her going full blown vamp, and then just ragdolling all these large dudes and stuff like Marcone, like Hendrix.
Yeah.
She
Mhm.
actually she could probably still ragdoll him like partial vampire. Either way, yeah, giving her a power up would have been freaking pretty awesome.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
of course, I think it was it this one when when Harry gets some love advice from Molly at age 13 or 14.
Oh,
whatever.
yeah. She was like 14
Yeah.
or something.
Oh,
Why don't you just cut her?
Yeah,
And he's like, what did you just say?
He got the cuffs off her. He's like, how do you have keys to handcuffs? Do you really want to
Do you
know
really
that?
want to know the answer to that?
That was like, well.
And then this was fantastic when it came to showcasing that Michael's family and everything. Like everyone had their own personalities. They weren't all this. He's definitely Catholic, right? It's totally they all weren't this insular Catholic family that were all like drones of one another. They had their own personalities because here she is, like 13 years old. She's got the handcuffs, and she literally like completely redresses herself in like what was it piercings and kind of like was it a goth garb that she put on?
She had like ripped up pants.
Yeah. If not goth, punk, and like I'm sitting there the first time thinking this is Michael's daughter.
Right,
this guy's working out for him.
Yeah,
but yeah, I just and getting to see all like the different Denarians, and I think this was this where Butters was introduced?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was hoping we could talk about Butters because I have to
we
say
could talk about Butters.
of the non-high profile side characters, or at least in this book he wasn't that high profile. I absolutely love Butters. Like the whole dichotomy between this, this brilliant coroner guy and with just this weird love for polka music. I'm like, dude, I am all about this guy. So cool. So I'm glad we're talking about Butters, because if we didn't, I was gonna bring him up. I'm like, wait, what about Butters?
What about Butters?
I love how dialed into everything he was too, because his first introduction, he's like literally saying, no, these things aren't human. Like these are like vampires or something. Like,
didn't they say he spent like 90 days in the mental institution?
Yeah,
because
like
he wouldn't recount himself.
Yeah, but he comes out of that, like he goes in with a stride. I'm sure he's not happy about it and stuff, but he sticks to his convictions because he's like, I'm not crazy. These things aren't people. They're not human. This they got like a bunch of organs and teeth and stuff that people don't have, and the police, special investigations department, they're probably like, nah, yeah, they're not people, but. They can't say that stuff because that's like the whole point of that whole department. They're like, all right, we gotta take the crazy magic supernatural and we gotta wash it and make it the mundane. Give us a logical explanation for things. So like Butter's like, bullshit, I ain't doing that. This is not a person.
The best part about Butters is when I watched an interview with Jim. And he was like, they asked him, like, were there any characters that were not supposed to be big at all? And he goes, oh, yeah, Butters was just supposed to be a throwaway, one scene character. He goes, and then I couldn't get him out of my head.
Yeah, I can totally see that. He's one of those characters that grows on you kind of like a fungus. But, a good fungus. I mean, I'm glad he didn't throw him away.
Oh, yeah. No, he's definitely one of those hidden treasures that Jim found, because Butters is just great every scene he's in.
Yeah, super unassuming side character, and everybody falls in love with him. He's like, I could use him more often, and he does it very well.
I think Jim does a really great job of, and I think we kind of all seen this once we got to Peace Talks and Battlegrounds, since it was 5 years in between the last book. I believe that like Jim really does listen to his fans. He'll be like, oh, you like this character in the book. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll find a way to kind of fit him in here, or, I'll plug a character or do something similar if you like those kind of things. Whereas I feel like some writers will just be like, I have a vision. Don't care what anyone thinks. We're just going to go with it.
Yeah. George R. R. Martin, for instance, no character is sacred. If he wants them dead, they're dead.
Yeah. I remember and like Jim was doing another interview and he was talking to another author and they were talking about, oh yeah, one of my fans, like some of my fans got really mad at me when I killed off this character. And Jim's like, that's a thing? Oh, hold my beer. He's like, oh man. But so like, what did you guys think about the Marcone dynamic and at the end, how it all ended with death masks?
Hidden depths do not begin to describe it. Like it's you would never have guessed initially. Like you never would have guessed, and then that happens. You're like, this completely repaints his character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was not expecting to see Marcone go full commando on at the end there. I'm like, dude, I mean, this guy's got this guy's got some serious cojones.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he puts a bead on old Nick with what was it? It was nondescript, probably an MP5 submachine gun. He puts a bead on him. Yeah. And he hits every single round center mass while Nick is fighting somebody else that he doesn't want to hit. The guy has some mean skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and up to this point, yeah, he's. I mean, we all know he's a mob boss, that whole thing, but he's Gentleman Johnny Marcone. You don't expect. At least I did not expect that going in. I'm like, a whole different side of Marcone.
Yeah, Sarah, what did you think about his like psychology and everything at the end of this book when we figure out why he was going after the shroud?
It was intriguing. It was when I did when I read like books 1 to 7 and I did my like most important moments of the beginning of the series, I included that ending with Marcone there because we get to see that extra dimension to him. We get to see him, if I don't know if we can call it compassion, or I guess the bigger question is why he's doing what he's doing and what he feels like he needs to get out of it. And that becomes clearer as the books go on. But it was definitely interesting. It was an added depth to his character that he had not had at that point. And it's probably the first time where we get a lot of that depth from a villain, because like Alex said, like even like looking back, and this is part of the problem with any long series, like looking back at Summer Night, you can understand a lot of what drives the Fae, and you can understand a lot of the villains better because you have the context of the later books. But in book 5, when you see Marcone and why he wants the shroud and what he wants to use it for, is the first time that we're given hard evidence that someone who has been a bad guy and is a very bad guy also has good in him too.
Yeah,
for Dresden and for Marcone, I really liked it.
I did too. Yeah, that was a huge moment for me, like seeing that whole different side, like he actually has a heart. he actually cares about someone and feels remorse even for something that happened to someone else. Yeah, that was huge.
And it's hard for him to soul gazed him. He knows what is not in there. Like he knows what a monster he is. And I think it takes him back as well. And he's like, whoa, I now have to reinterpret what I thought I knew about you. And it causes a shift in him.
Mm-hmm.
You have so many layers with Marcone, which makes him such a great character and anti-hero / villain. And then you, of course, have Nicodemus, who is one of the actual, like, I'd say better villains of the series, just because of his power level is actually strong, and he uses that, and he doesn't just show up and get killed. And he kills and hurts a lot of people, and he's just like that pure evil. You can't really reason with. Like he's intelligent, but you can't necessarily reason with him either. It's like he has his agenda, and he is collecting people to turn into monsters, and he hates the Knights of the Cross, and like if you get in his way, he's gonna destroy you. But
Nicodemus, I mean, I think he's one of his big problems. Is a classical problem where his biggest failing is his pride. But like that being said, and everything like you said, like Alex said, he's not stupid at all. Like
Yeah.
this is probably one of the more savvy and if not outright intelligent, but at the very least sly and savvy villains we've ever encountered in the series. I mean,
Absolutely.
he is the only one up until now to have Harry absolutely 100% without a shadow of a doubt dead to rights.
Mm-hmm.
You needed somebody to come in like almost a Deus Ex Machina to save Harry from the situation he was in. And the thing is, I say it's similar to a Deus Ex Machina because this is one of those rare moments in the Dresden Files. I think they're rare. I mean, I don't pay attention too much to them, but this is the one that stuck out to me. This is the moment where literally nothing was going to save him. Like he could not get out. He wasn't getting out. And Nicodemus had the blade to his neck. He was that close to just slitting the throat. He was going to do it. And then, what happens. But like he had him dead to rights.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And even right after, Shiro gives himself up, he's still just like,
he still tries to kill him. Yeah. So that he is one of the.
He can't be trusted at all.
No.
Like there's like he's not one of these old. He's from the old world, but he's not one of these old world people where it's like, oh, my word means something and hospitality. And Nicodemus is like, no, I will kill you at any opportunity that I get.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like the dynamic between Harry and Marcone where they kind of have an agreement. Like we know that at some point in life, like we're going to have to kill each other, but we can have agreements and we can have peace treaties and kind of get along with each other to an extent. But Nicodemus is just like, no, like I'm literally going to kill you the second I can.
Yeah,
So,
and that really shows you how formidable Nicodemus is because for them, because they really solidified their pact in this book. It's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, at least for right now. And it's been one thing up in the series till now where Dresden and Marcone have an obvious respect for each other, even though they disagree. They still have that modicum of respect, but now everything was on the line, and they're like, okay, we have to work together. Mm-hmm. There's no other way.
Yeah. Well, I like one thing that I think sums up like a big part of like the all of Dresden is the scene where all the knights and him or I think it might just have been Sonia and Michael were at the hotel and they figured out the one denarian and the denarian gives up his he's like, oh, forgive me, I'm bad, take my coin. And Harry's like, take him out. And they're like, that's not what we do. That's not. Yeah. And then like they walk away and Harry's like,
hell no.
He goes, they're good men. I'm not.
Unfortunately for you, I'm not.
And he just beats the snot out of this guy so bad.
Breaks his arms and his legs.
Such a thing. Like the knights have limits.
Yeah.
And Harry has to sometimes not have limits.
Yeah.
And that's
kind of understood that because like when he walks out after beating the crap out of Cassius, Sonia's got a smirk on his face and Michael's smiling. They kind of like wink, nod, like, oh, he'll be all right because you actually did him a service because you didn't kill him. So now he can cover
he gave him a quarter.
Yeah, that's Sonia's like. Yeah. I love how Sonia is one of my favorite characters in all of fantasy. Where he's like, you actually did him a favor. Now he has time to think about it, like while he's laid up in prison. I was like, or whatever. I was like, I love it. I love Sonia.
No matter what, you can't say that he didn't try to help him out. He gave him a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's 50 cents.
That's the part that's so good because Michael's like, it costs more than that now, right? And he's just like,
yeah.
So, Alex, when did you finish Blood Rites?
2 days after I finished Death Mask.
Was that here recently?
It was probably over a week or so ago now. I flew through them. I read / listened to all three of these in like 4 days, and then I didn't read anything for like 5 days because I was like, big break.
So what were your initial thoughts about Blood Rites?
My initial thoughts of Blood Rites the first time reading it was coming off of the high of Death Mask and everything that happened. And it being like by far my favorite book. And then Blood Rites, I was just like, this is kind of a step down, because other than what we learn about Harry and Thomas, I didn't care for the plot. I thought it was kind of dumb to do this little side plot, like we're filming an adult film with vampires, and I didn't care that the director's wives were getting killed. I was like, I don't care about this plot at all. I didn't really like. Death Mask gave you so much. Like all the things were happening, all the characters introduced, like great villain, great plot, like power levels off the charts. And then it was just like, here's this silly side plot where Harry is working on a set. So I didn't love it the first time around. I definitely liked it more this time, but it doesn't move much for me, like tier ranking wise, just because everything after it is way better, and Death Mask is still definitely better in my opinion. So I liked it. It was more fun, I guess, this time around, but still, like, the plot's just pretty weak. Like the general like mystery element of it was not one of my favorites.
I can definitely see that. Yeah, it was definitely weaker in that respect. I think what did it for me with this book was all the connections that started to fall into place, like like the big WTF moment when Thomas drops, "Hey Harry, I'm your brother." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And then that whole thing, I was just like, "Okay, dude, that just came out of nowhere." And then so that it built a lot of connections for me for the world. But I think that whole mystery thing was kind of in there as an element to serve the plots of all these other things happening. And just let's write a book about a porn movie, and let's figure out a way to put a porn movie in there. I'm like, okay, whatever, Jim. But
at least the piece with Thomas, like that pays dividends, because even in that book, as soon as Harry realizes, like, oh, I have family now, like literally changes his entire world.
It totally does.
I gotta protect this guy now. Like, he is my brother.
And you do get to kind of meet his mother regarding that, because of that as well. Because the little link that the two end up having. I mean, was that triggered from a soul gaze, and then wearing the amulets? I can't recall. Whatever it triggered, and then it was like there was a kind of a pocket moment where there was delayed time, and they had time to talk and such.
Yeah,
I believe so.
I thought it was in the Wraith Mansion.
Are you talking about when he gets to see Thomas and like he talks to his mother?
To his mother,
that's in the secret room in the mansion.
In the mansion,
where the portraits are, right?
Yeah,
because it was right under her portrait.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where when it was happening, I was like, and they're like all his wives, or all the women who've bared him children. I was like, it was kind of like, okay, I see where this is going, but it's not going to go there, is it? I admit. And then when it does, you're like, oh, Thomas, and especially since I already really liked him, I was kind of happy. I was like, yeah, okay, now they're tied together, and it all makes sense why he was. You're like, why? Because in the beginning, you're like, why is Thomas being so freaking nice to Harry? You're like, this really doesn't make any sense. And then once you learn that, he's like, oh, and even Harry was like, so that's why you were, you're doing these favors for me for no apparent reason.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And this book's always going to hold a bit of a special place for me, because I genuinely think it has one of the best intros to any of the books, period.
Yes.
The single first line is amazing. The building was on fire, but it wasn't my fault. So good.
Oh my God. And then, and that's the thing I think with the way Jim does, and these, I think he tries to keep, I'm reading the Cradle series now, so it's a progression fantasy where it's like the character needs to get stronger everything. And I think Jim was like, well, I don't want that to be the case here. I don't want to have to always up the ante every time. So this is one of those like come down books where it's like, okay, he'll have something crazy happen, and then the next book he's like, okay, let's go back to a detective thing. Let's ground this a little bit so that I can come back up and surprise you guys again. But he introduces you get introduced to maybe the second best animal companion ever in Mouse.
Period. Like
Mouse is like awesome.
Mouse is the goodest boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just even when the first time through, I knew that like Mouse was going to become a thing because you're just like, he's like growling at the black cord, and he's like just destroying. He's like, oh, he's destroying the thing's ear, like.
Or when he has Murphy watching it, he's like, Dresden, I'm not keeping this dog. He's like, no, you're just watching it for me for a little bit.
I'm not keeping this dog. I love it.
Which again, that plays into the best exiting sentence too. What was it? It was like Harry goes, Thomas, why did you buy large breed dog food? Because that mouse is going to be a freaking, well, as he says, Dogosaurus, a massive monster.
But yeah, like the whole thing with Harry going through the adult movie. I just love the way Harry was so like weirded out about it all, and you get this mind of like Harry's like trying to, because it's kind of almost the opposite of the way it's always been through the books leading up, where where he's always like everyone's turning him on and everything, like all these fairies are super hot and I can't, my brain's gonna explode. And then in this one he's just kind of like yeah, let's just do this. I'll be your assistant. Try. He's like, it's not as nice as you guys think it. I love his monologue in it where he goes, this is not what you guys think it is. He goes, this is. I do not want to be here.
Right.
Sex devoid of romance.
I feel like I was Jim venting a little bit about the industry a little bit there.
I mean, the thing about this, it is kind of a bottle story and everything. There's not, it does expand a good deal, but it's not something like the things happening in this book is like they're much more personal, as opposed to a grandiose thing like the death masks where the what is it, the Shroud of Turin could create a mega death plague. Kill everybody in Chicago and the world.
And send it all across the world and just literally plague rot everybody on the planet.
Yeah, exactly. But in this one, it's really tied down to Harry's family. His mother takes center stage in the story, where and really this book is awesome at showcasing just how badass she was. She knew exactly what to do to the White King. She knew exactly how to hit him in the most painful way possible and just keep twisting the knife.
Yeah. And Harry calls him on it. And he's like, oh yeah, she never wanted to kill you. She just wanted to drain you of like any sense of power that you had and make you have to live with that.
Exactly. I mean, that is, I would honestly consume a prequel series just as her as the protagonist. I think she'd be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I loved in this book how you got to see Harry and Karen get closer and kind of, they were kind of joking around with each other a lot, where she was picking on him for having to be working on this thing, and she's like, do you mean boobs, knockers?
Yeah.
And he's like, stop it, Murph. He's like,
yeah, Murph was great. That whole dialogue was funny.
And then how she ends up, and she ends up going down and being, I love how like Jim makes her the hero of a lot of these things where you thought that the white king had her there at the end, and she ends up like just smashing him. And I think this book really, I mean, it had some cool stuff, and it wasn't it's not like it's a bad book or anything, but I feel like it was a huge setup for future things to happen.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
it's planting a lot of seeds. I mean, it's expanding on the white and the black court. You have Laura Wraith, kind of taking command of the Wraith family. You've got Thomas and Harry's relationship now. You've got, Kincaid coming back a little bit. You've got Murphy kind of holding her own to a certain extent. I mean, Lord Wraith did kind of mess her there at the end. But yeah, it's definitely a big setup book, and it is more personal, but there's also like you learn so much about Harry and what's moving forward, like family dynamics wise, that it was much less of a grand scale. And while the plot's kind of silly, it's just kind of there to have these little sprinkles of like personal moments throughout, which is nice. And then you do still get kind of a bombastic ending. I mean, they're literally summoning he who walks behind or whatever the demon's called, right. And that's never a good thing to have happening. So
no.
Yeah, that was a big like, what the heck, when they said that name, and you're like, what?
Harry literally has a brown note, like his brain short circuits for a second there. Like it says something like Hell's Holy Bells, or Hell's Holy Stars and Stones shit bells, I think is his line. So he goes and he conflates his own little curses and everything. And I mean, you don't know. I mean, you don't learn a lot about He Who Walks Behind, but you do know enough to where that thing has a full blown hardcore grudge, like just a straight hate, hate fire, for Harry and everything, and he knows that evil thing is going to come straight for him.
Yeah,
and with what it did to get here and everything. My thing is just hell no, no thanks. And then, like Alex said, this book does plant a metric crap ton of foreshadowing and seeds. Like, I mean,
Ebenezer and Kincaid.
Yeah, Ebenezer, their history, what who Ebenezer is, like his station and everything, and what that would entail. The burned hand, even.
Oh God.
That right there. That showed some stakes, is what that showed. Like,
really
Harry
did.
would get hurt. He would get hurt in previous books, but in this one, he got injured. This is something that just carried on. That hand was just unusable after that.
And if I remember correctly, I think it's still messed up in at least Deadbeat, right? Like,
oh yeah.
It's still fairly messed up, even in later books, for sure.
I thought so, because what you'll usually happen in most books is like they'll get injured in book 1 or 2, and then by book 3, it's like either enough time has passed or they've been healed, and it's not really an issue anymore. And he definitely carries that for a while.
I loved that the sigil was the only clean part of his skin. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, he buried that thing and ringed it and everything. I'm like, how? And of course, like, Kincaid is just, and again, like, and Jim does it again with, like, Kincaid was barely in, was barely in that first book. And then he's, he comes in and you're just like, I immediately love Kincaid. Like, Kincaid's he's just awesome.
Yeah. Kincaid is a really awesome character for sure.
Doesn't have time for anybody's crap. There's more to him that you aren't realizing. And then, when he starts calling Ebenezer Blackstaff, and then Harry finally confronts him about it, and they have like that huge WTF moment of like, oh, like,
that was
done. Like, you just murder people. And he's like, yeah, remember when I told you last book to watch the news for, Casa Verde? It was like, yeah, I did that. I dropped a satellite and just murdered hundreds of people.
A straight stat kill, yeah.
Yeah, it's like everything that he had to lie to him about, and still like Ebenezer's still not being entirely truthful, and like you can tell he's still trying to hide some things or shield Harry, but it's like that's his position, and he Harry had no idea that this even existed or how all the stuff that he's had to put up with. And again, this is where Harry kind of tunnel visions, because it's like, oh, you lied to me, like you didn't tell me about my mom or whatever, like I just get out. Like he completely kind of like blocks everything else out that Ebenezer is telling him about, like, no, this is way bigger than you or me, or like, and Harry's just like, nah, like get out. I don't want to see you again.
Well, yeah, they have a complete falling out with when it comes to this. I mean, this and just like the injury, this will last.
Yeah.
He has some strong misgivings and issues with Ebenezer and what he's done. And I think mainly it stems from the fact that it's literally the antithesis to what Ebenezer was telling him and training and teaching him. So he just comes off as this massive hypocrite.
Yeah. It's kind of, it'd be like if Daniel-san found out that Mr. Miyagi was a Yakuza, it's like, it's like, wait a minute,
you told me that. Yeah. That was he went and saw him for like bullying, right? So it's like, you're training me to fight the bullies here, and you're Yakuza. You're the biggest bullies on the block,
right?
And I think, as far as I know, Jim, or it hasn't been revealed. So I'm actually interested to hear everybody's theory. Sarah, what is your theory about what happened between Ebenezer and Kincaid?
I don't know if I have a theory about what happened between them. I don't know if I've put a lot of thought into it. There's so many moments that I need to go back and reread so that I can think of the little threads that pop up. I feel like there are big moments in Dresden that I think about a lot, and relationships that I think about a lot, especially that are revealed later in the series. But there are so many little things that I just, as I was reading, I was like blasting through so quickly that you can't spend enough time on every single thread. But what I do like about it, and what I liked about it when I read it the first time, is that we get this whole story from Harry. We get this single person point of view. So we believe the things that he tells us about people until something else in the narrative comes and shows us that there are different sides. Like, we only know what Harry knows, and we believe what Harry believes because that's what he transmits to us. So it's fun to have characters like Kincaid come in and be like, oh, that guy is like actually scary as hell. Like, I can't believe that you are on familiar terms with him. Like, staff. So it's fun to see like these other characters come in and give you a much needed perspective on people who are in Harry's life. And the same thing for Harry himself. Like, they can give you dimensions to Harry that you wouldn't otherwise get, because he is so, like Alex said, like just so tunnel vision that we only get his thoughts. And it's always nice when characters like this come in and kind of mix things up a little bit. But no, I'm not sure. It'll be fun to find out though.
Yeah, because I know. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's what makes it more interesting though, because you don't need to know everything, and you're only seeing this through Harry's eyes. So you might never know anything about Kincaid, because unless Kincaid shows up and he's like, all right, here's who I am. Like, same with McAnally. It's like you're constantly like, this bartender's got something going on, but I have no idea what's happening.
Right.
It's just like there's characters that come and go that you don't know, and you probably will never know. And I don't know that you necessarily need to, or it's like you don't want to uncover everything.
Yeah.
That's why it was good for McCoy to just be like, all right, here, I'm just going to sit here and open book. I'm going to tell you. And there's probably a lot more that he didn't tell him, but Harry kind of, shut down as soon as he's like, oh, you've lied to me about everything. Like, I can't trust you. I can't listen to anything. So I'm sure there's way more information he could have gotten out of him, but we don't know, because Harry was just like, nope, I'm done. Like, get out.
Yeah. You felt like that conversation was purposely cut short to kind of keep these questions for everybody to do what we're doing now.
Right.
You know.
And speculate. I am sorry to cut in. It's almost midnight, and I usually go to bed really early.
Oh man.
Because I am like almost falling asleep between questions, not because it's not super interesting. So thank you for inviting me, and I definitely would love to come back and
Glad
chat.
you could join us,
My
Sarah.
talk will be up in 6 hours, so I need to get.
Thank you for jumping on, and we'll try to make it a little bit earlier next time.
No worries. See you guys.
See you later, Sarah.
See ya.
Bye.
But yeah, I think we're kind of towards the end of the book, and that's the one thing I will say is like outside of for the end of the book, it maybe wasn't the most spectacular ending outside of the finding out that they were trying to pull He Who walks behind back through, and kind of setting up for the later books. You're like, oh well, now what's going to happen now that is it Laura? Is that Lara Wraith?
Yeah. Yeah, that still bugs me because I would pronounce it Laura, but then I hear James Marsh is pronouncing it Lara. I'm like, wait, no, what? No.
So, he also says mauve, which bothered me.
I caught that. Yeah.
Well, the earlier books he was calling Marcone.
Yeah.
He even said that in interviews where he's like, I kind of screwed that up at the beginning.
When I first started reading these, I think in one of my first reviews of the books, I said Marcone, and I got a lot of people were like, it's not Marcone.
Yeah. That's serious business.
I think I've went through these things like 4 or 5 times or something. I even on one of my reviews, I was like, oh damn. I was like, I did it.
But no, I mean, so I think the central plot is sort of irrelevant. Like with Arturo and his wives, like it's irrelevant to the overall book series, just because like those characters aren't that important. But like it's more facilitating the Wraith's power move and basically like consolidating power and setting themselves up for the future. And while we're talking about it, the moments that do stick out though are definitely what hold up the book. So even though the plot, like the whole like porn plot was just kind of silly and goofy, and Jim was having fun with the whole like doing that on set and like murder mystery on a porn set.
Yeah.
But the more important things are, all the stuff you learn about Harry and his life and the Wraith and their family dynamic, and just setting up the vampires for the future, and setting up, obviously there's going to be fallout from the Red Court of Casa Verde getting bombed by, Blackstaff McCoy, and Harry having that falling out and not having any friends at court anymore because Morgan wants to kill him. The Merlin wants to kill him. Blackstaff is his ally, but he doesn't trust him anymore. So like, he have the gatekeeper who's like a weird enigma of a person that doesn't talk? Like he has like very limited friends left. Like it's, I don't know, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that you can kind of pull out of this, and it's definitely a lot of setting things up to pay off, 2-3 books from now.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. I think that is definitely with this, like I said, I feel like, Jim drops us down after we have a really big event, we don't have another giant event right behind it.
It's like a falling action book, basically.
Yeah. But I think you're right. It was more to kind of show you what type of person Harry is, and then to give you that Thomas, perspective, and and to hit us up for things that are going to come, later on in the series.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we have another 5th member over there?
We do. Yeah, my cat Ari decided to join us.
Looks scary.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I know it's getting late for us over here on the East Coast. You two guys are over there 2 and 3 hours behind us here. You got your whole day.
Getting to be dinner time here. So
same.
All right, but like I appreciate all of you for jumping on, Alex. Hope to have you back for the next one.
Just let me know when I need to read more Dresden again.
Yeah, so I think the way we've been rolling these is we'll do 3 books every 2 months. So we'll be back here in about 2 months, and I'll try to get it out far enough ahead. Maybe I normally like to do them on Sundays. I don't know if that works for you, but that's kind of how I do it because I'm always off every Sunday. And
same here. That's best for me too.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
Yeah, so
I'm usually anytime like 7, 8 o'clock Eastern and later is pretty much any day of the week is fine because my kids will be asleep. So it always works.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for showing up, and leave messages, comments, subscribe to everybody here. You know, you can't subscribe to Nathan because he doesn't have a channel, but Alex, Chaz, Sarah, subscribe to all they're all great. And I'll answer anything that's in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks, Jared. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.